The Mental Health Association reports that 10 million Americans suffer from clinical depression and that half of all suicide victims were those who were diagnosed with clinical depression. Joining me now is a young woman who understands depression and is living with a suicide that follows that. Laura McCoy is the daughter of a suicide victim, a lady that many of us knew and loved and have worked with and known lots of years. 1 in 4 Americans will experience depression, and more women than men do so. And your mom was diagnosed with depression. How long ago, Laura?
It was about 2 years prior to her death.
And before that diagnosis, I guess what brought it about that she finally got a diagnosis? Did you as family members notice a difference? Did she notice a difference in herself?
She had about a month period before she asked for help that she stopped being able to eat right, stopped being able to sleep right, could not communicate with people, could not get anything done, get her life organized and under control. And finally reached out and said, I need some help, something's wrong. And we got her help. She went to a doctor and to a psychologist and to a therapist also, and began to go through therapy trying to pull herself out of the depression.
Were you aware prior to her decision to get this help, were there any outward signs or any way visible that you as family members could tell that something was troubling your mom?
Yes, she began to talk about it a lot and could not get anything done. I think a big difference that we saw between that and other depressions we had experienced was you could still cope day by day when you were depressed. And her depression became so severe that she couldn't get out of bed in the morning, couldn't figure out how to get anything done, could not even construct her life to get through the day.
And that is so difficult for us to imagine and appreciate, because we're talking about Pat Steigerwald.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure people know you and know her. In knowing her vitality and her activity in her work and all, that's very difficult for us to imagine.
Right, and you tell them just to snap out of it. What do you mean you can't do the dishes? You can do the dishes, you put your hands in the water and do it. But it's hard to understand until you're there that they really can't figure out how to do the dishes or can't get the energy from inside to do that.
And I think that's something that people don't understand about clinical depression. We're not talking about the blues that all of us have maybe for a few days, a couple of weeks. We are talking about something that goes above and beyond, is so much deeper.
Right, as it's described to us, it's like a hole, and there's so much stimulation coming at you from so many different ways that you cannot settle, that you need to find a way to settle all these stimulations, and you cannot seem to cope with anything at that time. Any slight decision becomes very, very agitated and enlarged and a big problem.
So was she unable then to even keep up with her work, her job?
Couldn't do her job, couldn't even decide what to have for dinner that night. That was too hard to think through with all the other problems that were going on in her mind. What
must that have been like for you, your brothers, your sisters, your father, to see your mom like this?
It was hard to understand, very hard, and then she went into a hospital locally and was treated for several weeks. It's a hard thing to understand because people don't talk about it much nowadays, and we've tried to be very public about it, and Mom did also, in letting people know that she had a problem and she was working through it, and that other people don't need to be ashamed to admit they have a depression problem like this. There's nothing wrong with it, it's a disease.
That's right. That is one thing that we have learned, is that clinical depression, there's a change in the enzymes and the brain chemistry and all, that it's a physiological problem, not something to hide behind the doors or in the closet. And when it's admitted, as you mentioned, there can be help.
Right.
Now, your mom went to the hospital. She did both talk therapy as well as
drug therapy, and really took a long time to come out of this. It took, I would say, a year and a half before we really saw big steps. She was able to go back to work and function, but still had a lot of emotional problems. And then about a year and a half after her original diagnosis, she started getting better quickly. And we thought, wow, this is great, but let's not go too fast now. And we had probably 7 months before her death that she was very in control of her life and very happy and really enjoying life, having a real lust for life again. And that was very good. We were real thankful for those months.
I guess so. Yes, I spoke with her about a week before she returned to the hospital in the end, and she was very hopeful and encouraging, and I think that's something we want to point out too, that depression doesn't always return.
It doesn't always, but the risk of that is there.
It's there.
It is there.
And family members need to be aware of that.
Need to be aware of that and realize that it won't last forever. If it does come back again, it can't be treated again, and it may be something they have to deal with all their life sometimes.
What did you find out? I'm sure that once with your mom's diagnosis, that you as family members did a lot of listening and reading and learning. What did you discover about depression maybe that you weren't aware of? What did you find out that as family members maybe you could do or should be doing?
Well, I found out after her death what a high risk she was for suicide. We did not realize this at the time, but I don't have the exact statistics, but it's like 10% of people who have been hospitalized for clinical depression will take their lives successfully, which indicates to me there's a strong chance of depression returning. You know, you're not cured forever. It's something you work through forever, like alcoholism or any other chemical change in your body. It's a problem you're going to have for the rest of your life. And we really thought she was better, and that's the way it was going to be. And it's part of why we were so surprised. I guess I didn't expect her to be sick again.
I was going to say, you had not been forewarned that maybe that this
No,
this
we
would
knew
happen.
she was having a little period of the blues that week, but it was never told us how deep she was feeling it again.
I guess also, among the rest of the family, did you and your father and brothers and sisters, did you talk among yourselves? Did you, as a family, maybe have a grasp of what your mom was going through?
I don't think we ever did all together. We tried, but I think there's no way unless you are involved in it yourself and feeling that, of knowing how she felt. I don't think even my dad, as closely as he was involved in her therapy with her, knew how she really felt. There's no way of knowing until you're in those shoes, I think.
Until you're in the shoes. You have children. She
Yes.
has grandchildren, because that's one of the things she was talking about, and so thrilled with were her little ones. As adults, you have certain coping mechanisms. How have you helped your children and grandchildren understand and deal with their grandmother's death?
We've had to be very honest, and we talked to our pediatrician before we explained the whole thing to them. And he felt honesty was the best policy, because when you're not honest with children and someone later on tells them the truth, they feel that you've lied to them, and they've become a victim of the suicide also. So we were honest with them. My oldest son is 8, and he seemed to understand all well. My 5-year-old's had some trouble understanding why Grandma's gone and why people choose to go. And we've had to, it's a hard line. You don't want them to think suicide is bad, yet you don't want children to think that suicide is a viable option they can take themselves. So it's been hard to keep the image of Grandma good in their eyes without letting them think that suicide is just fine for anybody to do when they're tired of life. And it's getting better as the months go on, but it's been very hard.
Do you find that your children do want to talk about it?
Yes, they do, very openly, and I think we've done the right thing. But it's been very hard to talk to them about it sometimes.
We're going to continue our discussion with Laura as she shares and talks with us about what she has dealt with also, and how we as a community maybe are dealing with mental illness ourselves. Stay with us. We'll be back.
Coming up, what you should know about signs that someone may take their own life.
Something Italian's been added to the buffet court. Sizzler. For a limited time, you can create an Italian feast.
Pizza, spaghetti, and meatballs.
Antipasta salad lasagna.
It's the Leaning Tower of Pizza.
You'll find the exciting new Italian bar, along with hot appetizers and desserts, at the buffet court.
Sizzler. Now this is an offer I can't refuse.
If you missed something, you're not watching 21 Live Weekend News.
During this holiday season, while we enjoy precious moments with family and friends, let's take a moment to remember the hundreds of thousands of American servicemen and women now in the Persian Gulf, including thousands of reservists who have been recalled to active duty. Please write them. Let them know how much we appreciate their contribution and sacrifice. Write them and let them know they're in our prayers.
It was the year Roseanne got booed, Madonna got banned, and we said goodbye to some of our most beloved performers. This weekend, Entertainment Tonight gives you an insider's look at 1990's most memorable moments. From movies to music to TV, we'll show you the scandals, the secrets, the stars who sizzled, and the ones who simply fizzled. Find out why 1990 was definitely a year to remember. Get the inside story only we can give you this weekend on Entertainment Tonight.
Sunday morning at 11 on 21 Alive.
Yes. We are looking at a challenging situation for family members and loved ones. They are the survivor of a suicide in their family. We're talking with Laura McCoy, and of course her mom, we all knew Pat Steigerwald from her public life, and very, very special lady. It's been how many months now since your mom's death?
4 months.
4 months. What has been, I know you have talked about this, the support and the fact that your mom was very open about it, and you have, as a family, talking about depression. Do you feel, though, that as a community, as a society, that the stigma of mental illness is gone?
I don't feel it's completely gone. I feel that people are willing to talk about it more openly. There still are many people who are very uncomfortable talking with that fact. You can tell people as you see them day to day in your life who are uncomfortable with the fact that your mother had a mental illness, and people who have accepted it for that and are there to support you. And it's hard for some people yet to understand or begin to even fathom what you go through in a mental illness.
Also, I would imagine questions that come into your mind and your other family members. Is there any way that this is hereditary, or do I need to worry about this?
When you start feeling depressed about losing your mother, then you wonder, should I be depressed? This is what killed my mother. It's a whole different ball of works than a normal death.
How do you deal with that?
Well, we've been going to a support group that's sponsored by the Mental Health Society that's called We the Living. It's a suicide support group for victims of suicide. And that's helped. As one of the people there described it, suicidal death is like a divorce and a death at the same time, because you have all the emotions of someone choosing to leave you on top of all the emotions of someone dying and the loss from that. So the people are dealing with almost a twofold grief process. We've met a lot of people there who have been dealing with this for years, who've never spoken to anyone publicly or anyone of their friends that admitted their loved one committed suicide. A lot of people hide it and say it was an accident and refuse to talk about it.
And that's very hard, because in the grieving process we have to pass through many different emotional states and feelings, anger and denial and all of those things.
Right. And it takes a lot longer in a suicidal death than it does in a cancer or a heart attack related death. We found that out. And sometimes when you're still involved in this process and your friends who have lost parents have already processed it all, the support group of other people who are victims of suicide is a place you can go where they understand why it's taking you so long to work through this. It's been very helpful.
And I would imagine that each of your family members is dealing with this at different rates, though, and in different ways.
Right. Everyone's at a whole different level of dealing with it. It's been real easy for some to accept it, and others are still at a really hard point. I'm kind of in the middle, I guess, is a way of describing it. But you go on and do the best you can and enjoy what life you have and try to learn from someone else's tragedy and someone else's hardship, and that's what we've done.
I would imagine the question has crossed your mind so many times, why?
Yeah. We really feel, based on our mother and what we know, that she was feeling like she was going down into this very, very deep depression again, and didn't know if she had the strength, number one, to pull herself out of it, and number two, didn't know if she wanted to put the family through herself being mentally ill again. And she was so happy to be well and did not want to be sick.
Didn't want to do it
Didn't
again.
want to be sick.
In your wisdom, which I know that you have gained much over these last few months, what might you like to say to people who maybe have family member with diagnosed depression, or maybe there are people out there who just don't want to seek doctor's help to find out for sure?
I would say you have to seek help. You can't handle this problem on your own. You have to seek help. If you're a family member, you need to be there to talk to them. You need to ask questions even when they don't seem to indicate they need for you to ask questions. You know, one thing we found out in this group, one thing that's good is to ask, have you ever contemplated taking your life? Has that been part of your depression? And people are afraid to ask those questions. They may not tell you. Some people have been so secretive and so deceptive about their suicide attempt that they maybe never would have dreamed of letting you know that. But it's a chance in a weak moment they might say yes, and you can try to help them through this. But you need to keep talking. That's the main thing, is keep talking to them.
And I would imagine as your family continues to work through this and to heal, that it will probably be a long-term process of talking and remembering, and it's not something that you expect to
recover from quickly. No,
right.
I think it always will affect my life. It's changed all of us very much. That can be a positive change, and that's what we're striving for now, is to work through having the good times remembered and having Mom's death maybe help some other people go on and have their lives be better.
Well, and I think and I know that's happening, because I know that you personally, and even here through some contacts and conversations that we have, that your family's openness and your mom's openness has helped other people understand and seek help. Well, it has, and we congratulate you for your courage, and thank you for sharing with us, Laura. And if you or a loved one thinking you have some questions about any types of mental illness, don't hesitate to call the local mental health association. They can give you direction and tell you where to go, but don't put it off. There's help available, and you can feel better, and you can learn about it, and you can learn to help and support one another as a family. 422-6441 is the number for the local mental health association.